Well, Chris, just to get a bit of the good news out of the way, Kyle Lowry is going to be taking part in the Skills Challenge at the NBA All-Star Weekend. Doesn't take a lot of the sting out of the last couple of losses for the Toronto Raptors, but nevertheless, that'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, a little bit if you're a big fan of the skills competition, but frankly, I would rather him just kind of take another day off at that point. I mean, he's starting for the East for the All-Star game. If it's apparent by watching him play that if anyone needs a little bit of R&R, it's Kyle Lowry.
That's true. You're absolutely right about that. I'm still about last night. Now, I mean, the Nets, took it to the Raptors in the second half. I mean, it was hard to watch. And in the fourth quarter, the Raptors have not been good of late. I mean, in the last four games, I was talking about it last night. In the last four quarters of a ball game, I mean, they're being badly outscored. I mean, what happened to we the fourth? What happened to this club coming out and dropping the hammer in the fourth quarter? Not as if they had a lead in which to retain, but what happened to all that?
Well, the We the Fourth hashtag is dead. They're proving it in recent games. I mean, it's a lot. A lot of it has to do with fatigue. A lot of it has to do with just bad decision making on both offense and defense. They're taking so many bad shots. I mean, if you want to get back in games, probably not taking 9 or 10 3-pointers in the quarter is the way to do it. DeMar DeRozan, Lou Williams, and Kyle Lowry, your three main guys in the backcourt. They're shooting less than 40% over the last 8 games, but they seem to have this mentality that, you know what, when we're trailing in a game, we're going to get into hero mode and we're going to start chucking it up. But that's obviously not working. And although they won 6 games in a row, that's nice. It wasn't against the best competition, and I think the Raptors team that's for real is the team that we've been seeing over the last couple of games, a team that has a lot of issues right now. Yeah,
and living and dying by the three of late, and, we see Lou Williams in the last couple of games, not so much. He's not playing too well, and, the shot's not going down. And this, I know I do not want to see a team that lives and dies by the three or by the perimeter and shots, long-distance shots. That's not the team I want to see.
Well, that's a shame because that's the team you're getting, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the big problems that fans have right now is that we're not seeing a lot of Jonas Valanciunas late in games. And, he's been very effective as of late. He's been, scoring the ball at a high rate, but his teammates aren't looking for him, and I don't get it. And a lot of it has to do with Dwayne Casey not giving him the minutes late in games as well, but I think most of the blame has to go on Jonas. I think he needs to start demanding the ball. The plays have to start going in and out, and maybe that'll help some of the perimeter players, but it's better than nothing. It's better than what they're doing right now.
Now, when you say demanding the ball, because and I think you and I have talked about this, in speaking with Leo Rautins, in Rautins saying, I think Valanciunas has earned the right to go to his point guards and say, hey, I want the rock. Give me the rock. Like, let me do my thing in there. That he's been in the league long enough and he's had enough success that he can actually get away with doing that. Do you feel that to be the case as well? And by saying demanding the rock, is it verbally saying, guys, pass me the ball, or is it based on the success that he has on the court?
Well, he doesn't need to be a jerk about it, but I would certainly raise my hand once in a while, say something in the huddles, under the basket, just call for the basketball. I mean, he's certainly earned the right to do so, but I don't know if his confidence is at that point where he could start asking a guy like Kyle Lowry or DeMar DeRozan to just throw it into me. And, he's playing with a lot of guys who just love scoring the basketball, and that kind of diminishes what he's capable of doing. But again, he's not Andrea Bargnani. He's not soft like that, I guess. But I think over time he'll eventually come around to just being more demanding. But, right now that it's nowhere near where he has to be.
Well, and in talking about Valanciunas and what he can do and as far as his size and his natural ability, do you feel that the league has gone away from a player like Jonas Valanciunas, thus nullifying the need for a player like him? Or do you look at it and say, hey, we've got a player like Jonas Valanciunas that not many teams have in this league? How do you see that?
Well, the league is getting smaller, and the center position is kind of just slowly going away. And, of course, that hurts a guy like Jonas Valanciunas. And Dwayne Casey always loves, if there's an opposing big on the other end of the floor, okay, Jonas has some value. But if they're starting like a power forward at the 5 spot and they're going small, Dwayne Casey's going to play accordingly, and you're going to see someone like Tyler Hansbrough or Patrick Patterson playing center. So it's a sign of the times. I mean, a guy 7 feet tall doesn't have as much value as he did probably 5 or 6 years ago, but that's just the way the NBA is these days.
Yeah, it is. And you would expect, though, tomorrow against the L.A. Clippers with, having some size there, like an elite center like a DeAndre Jordan, that we get a nice dose of Jonas Valanciunas tomorrow night, right?
Well, hopefully. I mean, someone has to defend DeAndre Jordan. Otherwise, he's going to grab 20 or 21 rebounds. So, yeah. I mean, you don't want to put Tyler Hansbrough or Patrick Patterson on them, and that was evident when I was watching the Brooklyn Nets game, and they were playing a backup center who, I mean, he's a starting center regardless, Brook Lopez, and he was just torching them on the boards. So I think Valanciunas should definitely get a healthy dose of minutes against DeAndre. That's all the Raptors have to throw at him.
Chris Walder with us of the Bleacher Report on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. I'm Jeff Sammut. Chris, DeMar DeRozan, and I want to talk about him in last night and, getting frustrated, getting teed up, and then a flagrant foul that had him fined $15,000 today. I'm glad he's not getting a suspension. But that kind of frustration, like a lot of people would say, and I was talking about it on the postgame show last night, that a lot of people would say, good, he's not happy. He's not happy with the refs or his play or his team's play, what have you, but good. He's showing some emotion. And he's angry, and he's showing some passion out there. I'm looking at it from a different perspective and saying, you know what, the Brooklyn Nets are looking at one of the two best players on the Toronto Raptors, a leader on the Toronto Raptors, and say, hey, look, we got to him. We got to him. And it makes the win that much sweeter. How do you see that? Well,
they got under his skin. And you know what? In all honesty, I think the NBA probably should have suspended DeRozan for that hit. It was blatant, and
yes.
I know he doesn't have a history of doing stuff like that, but at the same time, he had already picked up a technical foul before that. He was obviously in a grumpy mood, and then he makes kind of just like that full body tackle at that point. And it was a lot of built-up aggression, and I think what's most frustrating is that game against the Brooklyn Nets was probably one of the more winnable games the Raptors will face this month. I mean, if you look at the rest of the schedule, they're going up against a lot of winning teams, especially in the Western Conference, and their record right now against winning teams, I believe, is only 11-12. They don't play a losing team again until the end of the month against the New York Knicks. So, and they were undefeated at that point against the Atlantic Division. So losing a heartbreaker like that to Brooklyn, who just dominated them in the last 3 quarters, I understand why DeRozan did it, but he shouldn't have done it.
You're predicting that this month of February will be the first losing month since the Rudy Gay trade.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule just kind of – it's proof in the pudding. If you look up and down the schedule, even some of the teams they play in the Eastern Conference, they're going up against Atlanta again, the Washington Wizards. I mean, one of the more winnable games, I guess, against the West is against the New Orleans Pelicans. But the last time they played New Orleans, they didn't even have – superstar Anthony Davis, but now he'll be back in the lineup. So that's just another knock against the Raptors about why they wouldn't win that game. So, yeah, this will probably be the first losing month since Rudy Gay was shipped away.
Chris, defending point guards, Jarrett Jack has looked fantastic the last couple of times for the Brooklyn Nets against the Toronto Raptors, and I think the Raptors have had something to do with that. Do the Raptors have it in them to up their game defensively against point guards? Or has this become such a glaring need for the Toronto Raptors, it has gone beyond the need of going out and grabbing a rim protector outside of the organization, that is?
Well, Kyle Lowry's been atrocious on defense as of late. And like I said earlier, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he's tired. This was a guy who was carrying the Raptors when DeMar DeRozan was out with his groin injury. And now it's just kind of showing the effects of that. And when you're having a guy like Jarrett Jack, who's very talented, I'm not trying to take a shot against him, but he torched the Raptors twice. And I think a lot of that was because Kyle Lowry was just kind of giving up on the defensive end. And, sure, the Raptors need a rim protector. That's one of their glaring needs. But could they use a little bit more perimeter defense, something they're trying to get out of Terrence Ross at this point? Absolutely. And, of course, James Johnson is out with his injury. But then again, Dwayne Casey's not playing him. So I guess it depends how you just see which need is more glaring at this point.
Yeah, and does it surprise you that you're seeing the defense you are out of Kyle Lowry, given that he has Gravis Vasquez next to him in the starting lineup?
Vasquez shouldn't be there as far as I'm concerned. I think it's going to be sooner rather than later where we get Terrence Ross back in there. I just don't like the idea of having 2 point guards playing side by side in the backcourt, and unless you just want Lou Williams to be your facilitator. And Vasquez isn't a strong defender anyway, so if you put him against a guy like Kyle Lowry, who's just sinking deeper and deeper into this defensive lapse, I don't see that as being a positive right now.
Yeah, Terrence Ross was one of the bright spots last night coming off the bench. You think it's time? You should be back in the starting lineup?
Not yet.
Okay.
Especially, we're reaching the All-Star break, and there's going to be some time, during that week span where they can kind of go over some things. But Terrence Ross is going to get back into the starting lineup, but I don't think it has much to do with him deserving it. I just think it has to do with positions right now.
Would you be okay with Terrence Ross being trade bait for the Raptors?
That's interesting. I mean, just the fan in me strictly. I'm just kind of over Terrence Ross at this point. He's a chucker from 3-point range, and for someone who's as athletic as he is, as quick as he is, the fact that he doesn't get to the free throw line at all, I think he's averaging less than 1 free throw attempt a game, which is unacceptable for a guy with his body type. But I'm not giving up entirely on Terrence Ross. When you compare him to a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, who's taking better strides than Terrence is, it kind of makes you think, why isn't Terrence Ross catching up to Jonas at this point? But you know what? It's just taking a little bit longer for him, but time is running out. The Raptors are a playoff team. They want to make a deep run. I don't know how much patience they could have with Terrence Ross.
Well, and look, in talking about Terrence Ross and possibly dealing him, it's I made this clear on last night's show because somebody brought it up on the phones. And I didn't get the feeling from them that they wanted to just jettison Terrence Ross out of here and give up on him. And I didn't feel the same way. I'm just looking at it from a standpoint of you're going to have to give up something to get something, and Terrence Ross might be the giving up of something to get something to address a need. So it's not necessarily suggesting Terrence Ross as trade bait to get rid of him because I'm sick and tired of him or anything like that. It's, hey, you got to give him something to get something, and Terrence Ross might be that price.
And I don't know what exactly you can expect to get from Terrence Ross right now. I'm not saying he's regressing, but he's taking baby steps, and I don't know how many teams around the league right now would want to bite on that. And something the Raptors, love about their roster right now is the chemistry, and I think that's what Masai Ujiri tried to keep over the offseason. They deserve a chance to just get into the playoffs this year. I mean, they're a really good team. They're just going through a really bad spurt right now. So if they're going to make any changes, it's going to probably be at the end of the bench. Like we talked about this before. Maybe you give up an expiring contract like Landry Fields, see what kind of value he has. But trust me, when we get to April and May, the team we have right now is going to be the team you're going to be seeing in the postseason.
I was talking to Eric Smith last night on the postgame show and talking about defending point guards, and Smitty he suggested, you know what, I wish the Raptors would just throw a new look out there and go zone, even if it's just a couple of plays or something. Why don't they do that? Be creative on the defensive end and just decide to go zone. What would you think of that? And wouldn't it be great if James Johnson were a part of that, if he were healthy, 1, and 2, thrown in there, Coach Casey deciding to put him in there?
Well, the defense they're using right now isn't working. So if they want to go zone, I'd be all for it. But you need the right personnel in the lineup to do that. And you definitely need James Johnson in there. But for whatever reason, I think Dwayne Casey is more inclined to give minutes to Terrence Ross, try and get him out of this slump. And then again, if you put James Johnson into the lineup, what are you losing offensively? You lose a lot of range. You would probably have to take Amir out at that point, put Patrick Patterson in there for the 3-point shooting. But there's nothing wrong with making changes. I don't think it's a desperation play. And Dwayne Casey is smart enough to realize that it's just a matter of can he do it soon enough or do it too late where the Raptors are just totally out of it. You
talk about fatigue in terms of Lowry. What about with the team and Dwayne Casey trying to kind of curb that a bit by doing some more video sessions and less physical hard work prior to the All-Star break? Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, the All-Star break this year is a week long, so he could do basically whatever he wants at this point. And in the coming games, I think there's maybe only three or four at the most. If he wants to start giving his players more minutes, if he wants to start throwing in an extra practice or two, I'm all for it, just because the Raptors right now, it's not looking good. And a team with that record, shouldn't be giving me as many anxiety attacks as they are at this point. So if Dwayne Casey needs to go back to the chalkboard and start making little tweaks here and there, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris Walder, Raptors writer for the Bleacher Report. Chris, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy. We'll talk soon.